Okay. Sorry. Alright, so you said you were 19?
19, yeah. Just 19.
Just 19?
My birthday's January, and I turned January, and then I was in March of that year.
And did you finish high school? And then
Yep. I finished high school, and the following spring I was in the service, following March. No, I graduated in 66. So I was home a year in 67, and March of 68 I was drafted.
what were you going to do if you had not have gotten drafted? Like, were you going to go to college or?
Good question. I was a questionable college person. I like construction, so that's what I ended up going into. It was construction, residential and commercial, so I like the outdoors.
My mom said that this house used to be painted yellow.
Yeah, I repainted it.
Where did you go to? Where did you go for basic?
And Fort Knox, Kentucky.
And how long is that? Is that 6 months?
Well, actually, the AIT and basic, each one is 3 months. They're consecutive trainings that you have to complete. And so
AIT.
that's advanced individual training.
Okay.
You do basic, and then you do a more advanced training, and then you're deployed to either whatever what they call is your MOS, or military occupational status. Like here, a truck driver's MOS would be truck driver. Here, MOS would be carpenter.
That makes sense.
So, yeah.
And then you said you were airborne.
Yes.
So is there like special training for that?
Yeah, that was additional training.
Okay.
So then I went down to Alabama for training there, and that was a 3-week program.
3 weeks.
Yeah, we have
Short.
ground week, tower week, and jump week. And you have to survive all 3 weeks in order to graduate.
Was that like really hard, or was that?
Yes,
Yes.
very physically demanding.
So I've seen like the movies like Band of Brothers or whatever, but I don't know if it's like accurate. So is that?
After I finished my basic at AIT, not just anybody could go to Airborne. You were selected by your unit to go. So only so many were allowed. There's only so many openings for Airborne training. So it was $50 more a month. So I said, sign me up. So yeah, that was quite an experience. It was a lot of fun.
So, do you have any other family members who were serving or who got drafted like you did, or?
Pardon?
Did you have any like brothers that got drafted, or?
Yes, my brother, who's 1 year older than I, he was in the Air Force at the same time I was in.
Was he doing support roles, or was he in?
He was more or less support roles.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But that's mostly what it. Like whenever I think of him being in the military, I think of fighting, but.
Well, I think the ratio is if there's one man in the field fighting, it takes, I thought at that time, like 3 support people.
Oh, wow, okay.
Like base camps, Air Force, whatever. Supply. You got cooks and all kinds of, staff people.
Right.
So anything, it takes to run an organization. So there's quite a few people involved.
So you finished your training, and then you got flown to Vietnam.
Yeah, then you received your orders. After all my training was complete, airborne and everything, then you issued your orders. And I was the perfect age, and the fighting was pretty intense at that time. I was the perfect age to go to Vietnam. It was right in the middle of the heavy fighting. So almost everybody I was in training with, we all flew in a whole big convoy of airplanes and stuff. The whole battalion, thousands of us flew over at one time.
At once in one airplane, one convoy thing.
Yeah, one big convoy of planes. you know, equipment and
And
everything, you know, not just men, but all your gear and fighting arms, jeeps and trucks and tanks. So yeah, it was quite an airlift.
so your first couple like days in Vietnam, was it like super hot?
Yeah, because I went there. It was December here in the States, and I went over. When I stepped off the plane, it felt like I just stepped into a furnace.
Oh.
You know, it's quite the variation.
Yeah, you get on and it's cold. And
Oh, it was miserable there. So it was.
And then where like after you got there, how many days before you were actually like in?
I spent about a month and a half or so. My first job there was I worked in an ammunition dump warehouse where I put together orders to go on helicopters that supplied to people in the field.
Okay.
But then after a short time in my battalion, there's quite a few wounded and those that were killed that I had to go to the field. So I spent about 10.5 months actually in combat. Yeah.
What did you do there? Were you like parachuted in?
No, they tried parachuting before I got there. There's so many injuries and such a fiasco that they flew us to all the combat zones in helicopters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I would imagine there's too many trees to really.
Now, there was a lot of jungle there. I was
Yeah.
basically trips through the jungle most of the time. A lot of dense foliage and a lot of hills.
So what was your mission when you were deployed?
Well, I was in the northern part of Vietnam for the most part. It was like in Michigan, if Vietnam was Canada, I was like in the UP.
Oh, really?
In that kind of northern part, let's say if Michigan was Vietnam, I was like in the UP of Michigan, and if Canada was Vietnam, so I was assigned in that area. So yeah, we saw a lot of activity.
Did you like make any friends during your training or like your service?
Oh yeah, yeah. I met guys from all over the country, of course. And when I was in my first training session, I was surprised that I mentioned to my buddies that I was Christian Reformed. They never heard of such a religion. What's that? Are you like Baptist, or are you like a Methodist, or what is that?
Yes, dude.
They had never heard of it.
So, I know you said from your hometown you didn't get a lot of response when you got home, but when you were there, did you get any letters, or did you write letters?
Oh yeah, Henny and I were just dating at the time, so I wrote a lot of letters back and forth, and my parents too, you know.
Right.
So yeah, you always look forward to mail. There was always a big issue there. So.
How did that work? Did it always get there, or like was it flown in helicopters?
Yeah, if we were in the field, let's see, when you're in combat, you might go out into the actual jungle for, let's say, 3.5 weeks, and then they'll pull you out and you go to base camp where it's secured, and you relax and refresh, and maybe for a week, and you go back out again for 3 weeks, let's say. So you weren't out constantly
That makes
in
sense.
battle. It's just, and a lot of times you didn't see nothing. You hear about something going on 50 miles away, so they helicopter in there, and you go search and try and find them.
And you said you excavated some Viet Cong graves to determine if weapons were there?
Yeah. We were going through the jungle, and they're very adept at hiding their stores because they don't have trucks and helicopters
Right.
supplying them, so they gotta hide it. So we came upon about 4 graves, and I was one of the fortunate ones to have dig it up to see if there's anything under them.
Was there?
No,
Wasn't. But they have they been known to?
they were actual graves. They were actual dead Viet Cong now.
But did they actually put weapons in there on different occasions?
Oh, they had, yeah. They were known to do that. So,
So you had to make sure.
so we just had a, yeah.
And you're fighting the Viet Cong, because weren't there two, like the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong that were both?
Yeah, yep. There was in South, in the regular Vietnam, there's probably people that were against our occupation,
Right.
along with the North Vietnamese, but it's primarily North Vietnamese. So,
Were you against the U.S. occupation of?
well, at the time, you don't understand all the political
Right.
things that are going on. You find that out later on, that it was actually a lot of political stuff that we probably
Right.
should not have gone there. Something, same thing as Afghanistan. You wonder,
Right.
after they make the big statement about there's weapons of mass destruction, chemicals and all that, and they can't find it,
And why stay there?
why did we even start? And like there's a lot of protests and dissension in the United States over that war at the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of riots and
Yeah, all the colleges and stuff.
they have the right to speak too. Matter of fact, I had great respect for, there were some conscientious objectors, a lot of them due to religion,
Right.
but they served as medics.
Mm.
They just served as support people. They refused to carry guns, but they were willing to work as support
Willing to
people.
help the people out there.
Yeah, and so these medics, I met a few of them that were medics, and they were awesome. I was very impressed that they, stood up for their beliefs, but they still were willing to serve. So I had a lot of respect for the guys. So.
Did you have? I know one of the questions on the sheet was like special. Was it missions or?
I mean, like,
So like special degrees you just said.
what's that?
So like was there any like achievements other than some of the medals that you got while serving? Was there any achievements that you
Achievements. Well, I survived. There was a 2-3 day incidents while I was there where I'm fortunate to be here. We actually, it was a 2-day event. We made camp, and then myself and 2 other guys went on a reconnaissance mission around the area,
just to make sure they weren't there?
just to make sure the area was secure. And I was sliding down a hill, and all of a sudden the dirt started spitting up around me. Some sniper had me in his sights, but he missed me more than once.
Oh my goodness.
That was just the beginning of it. And the next day, since we knew they were in the area, so we had to seek them out, find them.
Right.
So I was first in line, walking through the trail, and again, they shot at me, and they hit a pouch in the front here had grenades in it. So it deflected the bullet.
The grenades deflected.
The bullet, and the grenades did not go off. So then I whipped that off my belt, threw it,
Right.
and I got behind a tree, and then they threw something at me, exploded to my left, and I got all shrapnel on my hip from
And
that.
Did they remove shrapnel from your scalp? So
Well, no, they
removed the cysts.
that was later on. I went to the hospital there in Vietnam. They removed shrapnel, but there was still some in me. So after I was home for about 20 years, it started coming to the surface a little bit, a few pieces. So they cut that out, and I had bunch of cysts growing on my head, under my scalp. So I had those removed.
What was that from? Was that from the stress of?
I don't know if it was from some disease or fungus I picked up there that came about 20 years later. I don't know.
I don't know. I heard about like Agent Orange.
Agent
Were you
Orange.
exposed to that?
I was in areas of it, like Norm Curtis. He's getting compensation for Agent Orange because he's having a lot of physical symptoms that could attribute to it. So yeah, I could, but I'm getting a little compensation from him for mental stress. Yeah.
What was was that like that 2 or 3 days? Was that the worst part of?
That was the worst 2 or 3 days of my tour, yeah. Because even like that was in January, February, March, April, and in August I got a week's what they call R&R, where you're shipped out of Vietnam. You can pick a country to go to for relaxation for a week. Well, I picked Hawaii. Well, a helicopter had to come in and get me. And so a helicopter came in with supplies. I jumped on the first one, and I left with that one to go to base camp. And then another one came with supplies and got more. Well, that one got shot down. I found out after I got back. You know, just the Lord was watching over me. Wouldn't you say the Lord was watching over me? Huh? Yeah. Because just you know, experiences like that just go on and on. And the worst one was we came upon a small village, an abandoned village in the jungle. And at the time I was a platoon sergeant. The last 4 months of my tour there, I was in charge of 10 guys. You called a platoon sergeant. And the boy, the guy that was walking in front of me is about from you to me. We were walking single file. He got shot in the head. And he was from Nuevo. And he had been writing home about me because they called me Sergeant Dutch. I was Sergeant Dutch. And he had written home about me about various things. So the first thing I did when I came back was I went to Nuevo and met the parents and the family and explained to them about their son and had a little service there. So that was real difficult. You know, he was a friend, and you know, it was just like young people, your young people group. You go to an excursion or something, and two of you die for some reason. You know, it's pretty hard to take if you're
Colorado.
if you go to a trip all together and have an accident and two of you die. You know, that's something that stays with you. So that's what you have to deal with when you're 19 years old in war. So yeah.
So was it when you were in for the 3 weeks? I think that you said 3 weeks that you were actually fighting. Was it just like a lot of fighting, or was it like
No more.
waiting around?
75% of the time was just searching. You're
looking for
them, and if you do make contact, you just level the whole area, or you call in artillery.
and they will.
So you just
Did you ever have to do that? Did you ever like make contacts when you actually had to either call in like an airstrike?
oh yeah, numerous times. Yeah, and it says there I had to load up bodies. And a lot of times, if one time we called in for artillery, but when the artillery rounds blew in the trees above us, it was a short round. So it was 19 guys that were injured in my company, and some of them very severe. And we have to helicopters come in, and we load them up, and I load them up, and you put their legs and their arms with them, and you talk to them to try and keep them from expiring due to shock. So you know, you gotta load up all these people, guys that are just basically all different modes of stress. You know, it's just,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Was there anything that was like when you were out of fighting for that week? What did you do? Like, was it like recreation or
Recreation.
like what did you do for?
Oh, nothing. We just you had about a 75-pound pack of stuff strapped all through you. You had, and you went walking through the jungle every day, through trails, searching out areas. Yeah, you had to carry like six or seven canteens of water,
Which?
Belt for the machine gun guy, all your ammo, your rifle, and a backpack full of food. You know,
Right.
so you had about 75 pounds. I got a picture of me sitting by my backpack, and
Big?
it's big.
Because I remember I went to I flew in a B-17 with this class, this history class,
Oh yeah.
and we got to try on like all of like the parachuting equipment and stuff.
I know.
It was really heavy.
Yeah. Fortunate for me, I was a Michigan farm boy, so I've been working in the fields and on the farm since I was 10.
You're used to.
So I was, a lot of the city, the kids that we were raised in the city and stuff, they had a difficult time, you know, it's very physical. Because, you know, it's so hot and humid that I could not wear like an underpants or under t-shirt.
Oh yeah.
You just wore a pants and a shirt, so if you got sores, they wouldn't heal.
Mm.
Because
So it was just too hot because then you
just keep
get
sweating.
the heat.
Yeah.
Exhaustion and stuff.
Just keep sweating. So. Yeah.
Where was the war at when you went home? Like, was it close to being to the U.S. when the U.S. pulled out, or was it not close?
I got out in December of '68.
Oh.
I think it was finalized like '72 or '73. Like 4 or 5 years later. We just basically abandoned it to people.
Yeah, that's what.
A lot of them died because they were friendly to us, and once they were taken over, they were just eliminated.
Right.
I was pretty sad when I'm part of the United States.
Mm-hmm. That was the worst war
That was
by far.
That's why that statement in that paper you got there is,
Very low response.
you come home and, you know, you get comments, hey, you know, there's a killer, you know. You just went over there because
You were told.
you were told to go. You didn't have a choice, either go or go to Canada.
Wasn't there like you either go or you get like put in prison for?
You could if you refused. The exemptions they had were if I would have gone to college, I could have gone to college first and then got sent if it was still going on, or
For like a officer role.
or no, if you went just basic college,
Oh, okay.
you were exempt. Yeah, or if you think you just got married, there's a couple of reasons you could exempt out of it. I didn't do that. I wanted to be a hero.
And it sounded like you were.
Well, I don't know about that. That's what you think when you're 19. That you're invincible.
So you were a sergeant, so you commanded or did you? I don't know how Army rank works.
Well, after so many months in the service, you like I say, you go from 1 stripe to 2 stripes to 3 stripes.
Right.
And after 2 years, that's about as high as you go, is 3 stripes, and you're done. But when I was a E5, which is 3 stripes, then I was platoon sergeant, they call it.
So you commanded
Just 10
10
guys.
guys.
I mean, it's called a squad leader, excuse me. A platoon sergeant is when you have 10 squads, makes one platoon.
Okay.
And so many platoons make a company.
Okay, that's how. Okay.
So I was a squad leader, excuse me.
Squad leader.
And you have a lieutenant or an officer who was in charge of the platoon.
Okay. Okay.
Okay? And then you have another, like a major, who would be in charge of a company.
Mm-hmm.
So the more men, the higher rank. But, that's how that works.
When you got back, like readjusting this like civilian life, was it like really hard?
For me, it wasn't too bad. I can't say I had any issues, but there was a lot of them that did.
Mm-hmm.
You still see some of them today, my age, walk around with camouflage and, you know, military gear, and you just can't seem to let it go. They must, you know, a lot of them had pretty traumatic experiences. And
Mm-hmm.
probably mentally it was a little tough for them to forget it.
Yeah. And did you have like injuries? I know you said you have like the shrapnel on the side of your body, and you said you had a scar.
Yeah, just I had this little scar on my left hip here.
Was there anything else that you got wounded, or was it all?
That was the only time I got wounded. But for the grenade pouch to stop that bullet, that's yeah. That's that was pretty awesome that happened that way for me. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you like contact any of your veterans that you have like your friends?
There was other than that Sherwood I told you about, Moago, I got a call about 5-6 years later from a couple of friends that were like, one was in Texas, but I just kind of put everything behind me, just kind of put it out of my memory. So, and there was a King County sheriff here. We went in together. He became an MP, a military police. So we were separated, but we went in together. So I saw him occasionally. But other than that, no. And other veterans like Harvey Seitzman,
Right.
we were about the same time together. So yeah. And I had one other instance I forgot about was I was just leaving Vietnam, and just for some reason I bumped into my neighbor as he was coming in.
Oh my
I'm from Byron Center. Don't ask me how it happened. We just happened to bump into each other. I was going, he was coming. You know,
I was like,
yeah. And but you know, a month later he was dead. Yeah. A month later he was gone. I lived near 100th and Byron Center Road, and he lived on Byron Center Road near 100th. Just around the corner from each other.
Yeah. You say you put most of it behind you once you got back.
Yeah.
Did anything from the war last in your life, or?
Oh yeah, yeah. One thing is, I hear helicopters. That really gets my attention. And that was about the worst thing. Gunfire doesn't bother me. Stuff like that, loud bangs. Sometimes you hear explosions or something around here.
Right.
Usually doesn't bother me too much. No, I just put it all out of my mind, pretty much.
I'm taking Austin out, honey.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Yep.
I think that's all I have.
Okay. I'm just gonna make you a copy of that one.
All right. Thank you so much. great.